Good afternoon, everybody. Can you guys hear me? Excellent. How's everybody doing? Hi, Ziad. How are you? Good to hear. So, any questions other than those that are not in Menti at the moment that you may want me to address? Hey, Charles. Yeah, I'm doing great. Thank you. We can talk about TPS, Vincent. I'd love to talk about the TPS today. That'd be a great thing for us to talk about. We do have an announcement coming, TK Crypto, coming shortly. When unlock, we're definitely going to talk about that. All right, guys, let's jump into some of this stuff. So, when unlock, great question. When do you guys think we should unlock? What are your thoughts? Drop them in the comments in this here. But let me give you my thoughts on what we see and what we're analyzing and how we're looking at this decision, because you guys should know, right? So what we're looking at is, how are other projects doing? Some people say you can't time the market and whatever, whatever opinions that a lot of people have. We're not trying to time any markets. We're not trying to, guess at when's going to be good and when's not going to be good. We're looking at other projects and saying, did they have a successful listing or did they go below ICO, right? And, this is not about how I feel or how anybody else feels, right? This is about being prudent. At the end of the day, we don't want you to lose money. And so we're being prudent to make sure that, when other projects are doing well, when they list their tokens, right, and they rise, from their ICO price, well, we know we're in good conditions and that's the time to list. In the meantime, it's a great opportunity, right? It's a great opportunity for us to build awareness, to let more people know about Sparkster, to work on more exchange relationships, partnerships, customers, focus on building the technology. When the time is right, the market will tell us, right? Because when other projects list, they'll rise. And that's what we want from you guys, for you guys, right? We want to make sure that, the people that have believed in us don't end up losing money. And so when it's the right time, right, it's going to be, you're going to see the market rise. I mean, do you guys think it's a good idea to be listing the token when the price of ETH is below what it was when we did our ICO? I can't see how that's a good idea, So, we sent out an email yesterday too about, well over 100,000 people. And I think we've awoken some people that may have been sleeping. And, it's not a bad thing, right? They have their opinions and they may not have kept up with what's going on with Sparkster. And remember that, we have about 5,000 token holders. So that means there's 95,000 people that potentially have a differing opinion to the actual token holders. So sometimes when we hear opinions about unlock and whatnot, I don't know if we're hearing from actual token holders, but I think if you're a token holder, unlisting, unlocking in this market is somewhat suicidal. Look at the other projects that are listing. I shouldn't name them. I shouldn't name these projects, but go out there and have a look at the projects that are listing in this market. Are they doing well? I think you'll find that they're dropping significantly under their ICO price, and that's not good for anybody. Most importantly, though, and I think that this is a big deal, right? I care about this a great deal because the people that believe in Sparkster, the people that have the greatest propensity to hold the token, are the ones that are going to end up getting hurt by the people that don't believe in Sparkster. But the people that, the types of people who buy high and sell low, right? They're the kind of people that might be driving this, this movement to try and get us to unlock at this point in time. And, at the end of the day, right, it's your prerogative to lose money, right? I mean, that's a decision you make yourself. If your investment style is to buy high and sell low because your emotions make the investment decisions. But that being said, I have an interest in protecting the holders, obviously, right, or the hodlers. And it's important that what we do, is all about protecting the people who believe in the project. If you have someone that, if we do have a lot of people that believe in the technology and believe in the future, and I want to make sure that those people don't get hurt by the people that are running for the exit for whatever reason that they're running for the exit. So let's move on. We have a partnership to announce today, and it's actually one that I'm very excited about. So we are announcing that Sparkster is partnering with Utrust, and there'll be a press release coming out from us very shortly. There is a press release that'll be coming out from the Utrust team right about now, maybe a few minutes ago. So let's talk about this partnership with Utrust and why I'm excited about it. So for those of you in our community who don't know Utrust, Utrust is you can think of them as like the a payment gateway, or the PayPal of the crypto industry. And how we're specifically going to be working with the Utrust team, and how we're specifically going to be integrating Utrust, is that they will become an official partner inside of Sparkster's marketplace. So people who are building software inside of Sparkster's platform, when they need that software to interact with crypto, or they want to execute crypto payments, they can go to Utrust and they can use Utrust's integration with Sparkster to be able to execute crypto payments and such, and have the backing and the support of an organization like Utrust that can protect and provide chargeback protection for the merchant, can provide protection to the buyer whenever they're buying something, or whatever it might be. So we're very excited about this. The Utrust team are really great, really good people, and it's been great working with them, putting this together. So I'm very excited to be announcing, Utrust as a partner of Sparkster. So any thoughts, questions about that? I can see that there's people excited. Yes, I agree. It is a great partnership, and Utrust is a great product. So let's talk about the TPS question that someone had. Right? Can Sparkster achieve 10 million TPS? Is it possible? Is it real? What do we need such high TPS for? So let's talk about that. So remember, Sparkster is all about enabling people to build smart software without writing code, and then being able to run that software at really high TPS, right? So what does this all mean? Well, let's get into this. The smart software isn't just a smart contract. A smart contract is a piece of code that runs on a blockchain and makes decisions about executing payments and such, right? It's a programmable way of controlling payments. That's what a smart contract is. But software is much more than that, right? Software is, being able to list your home and then being able to communicate with people who are interested in making a reservation for your home, things like that, right? It's much more than payments. So what we're really facilitating is an ability for people to build software and run that software in a decentralized environment, full-blown software. Why is that a big deal, right? Like, why do we want to be able to do that? Well, firstly, right, I think the future of software development is codeless, and I think that we're going to lead that industry-wide. But I also think that there's a movement that's begun, really, and it's begun with the likes of Uber and Airbnb. And this movement is what I'm calling people-powered businesses. People-powered businesses are where the majority of the revenue goes to people who are participating in the network. So in the case of Uber, right? In the case of Uber, the majority of people who earn the revenue that comes from Uber are the taxi drivers themselves, right? So why do I think this is the future? Well, think about cloud computing, the industry in which we're operating in, right? If Sparkster's network consists of your devices, the community's devices, right? You have a cell phone that you are not using while you're sleeping at night. You have a desktop computer that you're not using while you're at work or you're sleeping, right? If you contribute that device to the Sparkster network, and with these devices, we form a cloud, right? Well, how does that compare to AWS or Microsoft's cloud? Well, think about the costs they have to pay. They have to pay for servers. They have to pay for buildings. They have to pay for storage. They have to pay for, they have to pay for cooling. They have to pay for diesel generators. They have to pay for maintenance staff. They have to pay for UPS backup power. Do we have to pay for any of that? Does a decentralized cloud consisting of your community devices have to pay for any of those things? The answer is no. And if that's the case, right, then can Amazon compete with a decentralized cloud? No, they cannot. Can the taxi industry compete with Uber? No, it cannot, right? And so I think that the future of business, the future of commerce, is this emergence of people-powered businesses, which is going to disrupt every industry, whether it's lending, whether it's banking. Your credit card company charges you maybe 28% interest on your credit card, right? If the funds to support that credit card were provided by the community, right, and you were able to earn 20% interest, would you contribute to such a program? You would, right? And you'd be able to potentially put banks out of business or out of the lending industry. So Sparkster's about enabling these types of businesses, or really any types of businesses, to be built on Sparkster using Sparkster's no-code tools, and then be able to be run on Sparkster's decentralized cloud. So why firstly do we need 10 million TPS? And then we'll talk about how do we achieve 10 million TPS, right? Why we need very high transactions per second is because software transactions are not the same as payment transactions, right? So let me give you an example. Let's say that you're shopping on Amazon.com and you're browsing around and you add 10 products to your cart, right? That's 10 software transactions. But when you go to make a payment for all the products in your cart, you make one payment transaction. So while it's true that maybe Visa has 25,000 transactions a second, or so people say, right? I haven't personally validated that. In the software industry, 25,000 transactions a second is just not going to cut it, right? If we're going to build and run software on a decentralized cloud, then we need millions of transactions a second, right? So how does Sparkster achieve it? Well, when it comes to software, we have these natural divisions or natural partitions that exist, right? So when I ride an Uber, and let's say you ride an Uber, right? Do those transactions of my trip and your trip ever need to know about each other or have anything to do with each other? They don't, right? Is that true or not true? Does my trip history have anything to do with your trip history? Do I ever need to see your trip history? So if we're talking in terms of a distributed hash table, right? If we're talking in terms of a blockchain, does my trip history ever need to synchronize with your trip history? It doesn't. And because my trip history never needs to synchronize with your trip history, we can put them in separate blockchains. And this is the key. When you can have multiple blockchains, thousands of blockchains, and we can execute transactions in parallel to these thousands of blockchains, you end up with millions of transactions a second, right? Now, each one of our blockchains today is capable of achieving more than 1,000 transactions a second. 1,000 of those is 1,000,000 transactions a second. We've demonstrated 52,000 transactions a second, live, by the way, on YouTube. So how do we bring this all together? Well, one of the nodes in our network is called a compute node. It runs an algorithm called consistent hashing. And in fact, in our AMA, which was, I believe, in July, we actually demonstrated this. And I recommend you guys go to our YouTube channel and check it out, right? We showed how this would work. But anyway, the compute node runs this thing called consistent hashing that has the ability to take my ID or my name or something and hash that and figure out where which cell or which blockchain, we call blockchain cells, which cell that transaction lives in, right? And so an application, let's say that you build Uber on top of Sparkster, you'd have an ability to have a view of all of your customers across all of our various cells, all of the blockchains, right? But the application itself can have extremely high TPS. So let's take this idea a little bit further, right? Someone like Uber, let's say that we have 26 cells, right? Someone like Uber could say, well, I want to put all of the customers whose first name begins with A in the first cell, and all of the customers whose name begins with B on the second cell, and so forth, right? Now their application would have a potential for 26,000 transactions a second. That's not just the blockchain, but their applications would have extremely high TPS. So what we're saying is not only can you build, right? Not only can you build applications without writing any code, but the applications that you do build can achieve high TPS. And that's a big deal. All right. So shall we move on to some of the questions that have been asked? Why do I think Sparkster has so many haters in other crypto groups? And how do I plan to prove them wrong? This is a good question, actually. I appreciate this question. Thank you for asking it. Well, let's talk about history, right? You know, sometimes innovation doesn't come from the places that you expect it to come from. I'll give you an example, right? When the airplane was invented, otherwise at that time it was known as the flying machine, right? The Wright brothers created the airplane. Well, if you go to the people that were funding the development of the airplane, they had, you know, most people had put their money on a team from Harvard that, you know, that they thought were the ones that would come up with the innovation of how they would build a flying machine, right? Then these two kids from a bicycle garage, they created bicycles, right? I mean, they were people that repaired and created and built bicycles. These two kids from a bicycle garage claimed to have created a working flying machine. And the team from Harvard weren't there. They didn't have anything that actually worked or functioned, right? I think that this is similar to the situation at Sparkster, right? There's a lot of people in the software industry, some people that have been veterans of the software industry for 25 years. And they look at us as this young team and they say, there's no way that these guys could do this, right? This is impossible. This can't be true, right? Maybe some of them have good intentions. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt that they have good intentions, right? And you know, they might be like, well, you know, I work at IBM and I work at Microsoft, or I work at wherever you might work at, and I've been there for 50 years, right? Just because you can't figure out or haven't been able to think about how to make this a reality doesn't mean it cannot be done. If you want proof, right, go to Sparkster now. Go to sparkster.me/try and try the product. Go through our walkthroughs. You're building software that you're able to interact with in real time right there in front of you, right? This is real. This isn't just a claim that we're making. This is something that you can go and try, right? So why do I think we have so many haters? Well, I want to give these people the benefit of the doubt and tell you, I want to be optimistic and tell you that these are people that hopefully care about you and trying to tell you that, they couldn't think about it, therefore it's not possible. Well, it is possible. We've done it. We're more akin to the Wright brothers side of things, right, than we are necessarily to the Harvard team that wasn't successful, right? Yeah, the other side of this is, well, there's a lot of people that would be impacted, right, when we're successful. We will come to dominate this industry, the software development industry, because Sparkster is 100 times faster, easier, and more efficient than traditional software development, at least 100 times. And therefore, we're naturally going to displace a lot of traditional development methodologies and maybe even traditional developers. I hope not, though. I hope they join us on our journey. And therefore, you end up with haters, right? That's just the way it is, right? But, in terms of proving them wrong, go to sparkster.me/try. That's all the proof we need to give people. So thank you for the question. Next one. How am I going to incentivize the community to hodl Spark? Good question. So the thing is, right, I value our community and I value our token. You might wonder, why haven't we done airdrops and other things? We built this massive community without doing airdrops, right? We've done, we haven't done airdrops because we don't want to devalue the Sparkster token. We don't want to put it in the hands of people that don't necessarily care. And this is important. Caring is important, right? I care about people that care, right? My decision about not unlocking tokens is about protecting the people that care, about protecting the people that care, right? And, for you guys, what I'm disappointed by, to be honest with you, right, is how few people are willing to engage, right? What I mean by that is listen to the videos, show up to the AMAs, read articles. I'm shocked. I'm absolutely shocked. You've purchased, hundreds, thousands of dollars of Spark tokens, but you have no, you have no interest in knowing what you're part of, really, right? Are you, is that rational? Or is it that you're just someone who couldn't get in and now you want to make trouble? I mean, I can't figure it out, right? But nonetheless, look, guys, let me tell you why I'm doing this AMA. It's not because I have nothing better to do. Trust me, right? I work 16 to 18 hours a day, every day, right? I have plenty to do. I have plenty to do, right? But if you're not going to engage with the content we create, like, I don't know how to help you. Help me help you, right? We're here together for a long time, right? Help me help you. Engage with the content, right? If you've got questions about it, if you don't believe something that I'm saying, like how does Sparkster achieve 10 million TPS, let's talk about it. That's the type of question I would love to talk about, right? Anyway, thank you for the question. How am I going to incentivize you to hodl? Sorry, I didn't answer the question. I'm going to incentivize you to hodl by creating mainstream adoption. And that's what you should expect from me, right? The projects that are going to survive whatever we're going through right now, whatever you want to call this, the projects or whatever's about to come or whatever's going to come in the future, The projects that are going to survive, they're the ones that achieve mainstream adoption. In my opinion, we have amongst the strongest case in the industry for mainstream adoption. Why? Why does Sparkster have the strongest case in the industry, or amongst the strongest case in the industry for mainstream adoption? The answer is because we make software development accessible to non-developers. For developers, we make it 100 times easier, faster, more efficient than traditional software development. We put the power of creating software, we put the power of creating the future, putting your ideas into reality in your hands, right? This is about putting blockchain in the real world, solving real problems for real people in the real world. That's why we have amongst the strongest case in the industry for real world adoption, right? And as you can tell by my passion, I will not stop until we achieve mainstream adoption, right? So how am I going to give you guys an incentive to hodl? Well, at the end of the day, right, I believe that we are one of the few coins that will survive and rise. And I mean rise, right? Rise. You take that to mean what you want it to mean. So you tell me who has a stronger case than we do in terms of mainstream adoption. I'll be surprised. I'm interested in hearing, your thoughts on this, in all honesty. Thank you for the question. Let's move on. Are there any top 5 exchanges that we're aiming to get? There are very specific guidelines that I have to abide by in terms of what I'm allowed to say about exchanges, right? So here's what I have to say. Pick 5 exchanges that you might think are good exchanges. I want you to know that I also think they're good exchanges, right? And we have applications in progress with 15 exchanges. That's all I can say about exchanges. Oh, as you know, let's talk about BuyBox. Wonderful opportunity to do that. So people are wondering, are we disorganized? There's a lot of things that people have said in the last 24 hours since we've announced BuyBox, right? So number one, we began applying for exchanges. Let me clarify this, right? We began applying for exchanges immediately after the pre-sale ended, right? That was the beginning of June. However, exchanges take their own time and make their own, they have their own decision-making process, which we have zero influence over. Zero influence over. Number one. Number two, for many exchanges, some of the documentation wasn't ready, wasn't available. Now, what kind of documentation am I talking about, right? Well, we need to provide, for example, a security audit from a third-party firm for our smart contract. Well, if you don't have a smart contract until the crowd sale, how do you provide that documentation? You don't, right? And therefore, your application gets to a certain stage and they're waiting for that documentation, right? So here's the thing. Applications are in progress. BuyBox is one of the many exchanges we've applied to, right? And it happens to be one of the early ones that has responded, along with CoinX. And here's the thing, right? If you guys blow down, if you kick down everything that we propose, right? You guys lose. You lose. The exchanges themselves, they do their own marketing to their own community, right? Their community isn't necessarily our community, right? They're not necessarily the people that we have in our community. They're in other regions, other geographies in the world. We want mainstream adoption. We want to reach places in the world that maybe we haven't yet reached. If you don't support us in that, if you don't help us do this, how do we get there? How do we get there? You hurt yourselves, right? I mean, guys, let's come together. Let's get this done. This is madness. It's madness for us to say that, because it's BuyBox and it's not some other exchange, we're not going to support this. You're hurting yourselves, right? Because what if the exchanges that you guys are hoping for take longer than you want? What if the market turns around and we don't have yet the exchange that you want? This isn't good for you. It's not good for anybody, right? Guys, come on, let's use our minds. Let's get this going. We need to win the buy box vote. And I expect your support, right? Let's move on. Do you have a deadline date for the platform to go live? We are actually in the process of preparing an announcement for the process of that. And I know that that's not very clear, but there'll be something coming shortly that will talk about that process. So bear with us. Will I be building hype around more exchanges when we come to unlock and partnerships? Yes. And it's not just hype, guys. We're creating real partnerships with real people that make real sense, right? Credits makes sense. Utrust makes sense. Credits is a high throughput environment for payments, right? We're an environment that's optimized for building and running software. They're an environment that's optimized for payments. It makes great sense for us to partner with them, and amongst others that are in the process, I might add, right? You know, Utrust, like we announced today, same thing, right? They do something we don't do, and we do something they don't do. These are partnerships that make great sense to the long-term ecosystem of Sparkster. And that's how we're approaching things. We're building a long-term ecosystem because we're facilitating mainstream adoption, right? By using blockchain technology to solve real problems in the real world for real people, right? That's what you need to know. When do the Teams tokens unlock? 2 years. When do you expect the launch of the mainnet? We are working extremely hard on mainnet, right? We're working round the clock on mainnet. I was here in the office till about 11:30 last night, 11:30 p.m., working on mainnet, right? Mainnet is a big deal, man. And yeah, we're working around the clock. For those of you who don't know, I've flown in our core team from India. I've flown in our core team from the US. We're here in London. We're working round the clock to make mainnet a reality. And we're doing everything we possibly can to deliver by the end of the year. $30 million raised from ICO Invest in Binance listing. Okay, so application in progress. And my recommendation is that you go and read the articles that CZ puts out, who's the CEO of Binance. You know, it's not up to me, right, or anybody that I know about whether we are, you know, what that process is to get listed. And that's their process. And they're very particular about their process. So I can't say more about that. Are 100x advisors advising Sparkster? Well, they are advising Sparkster from the perspective that, you know, they're helping us with a lot of things that are important for us to have in place for the time that we do list, right? You know, listing is about more than just market conditions, right? It's about making sure that we've got partners that work with us to provide liquidity, to make sure that when people want to enter, that they can, when people want to exit, they can, right? You know, there's a lot of things. So, you know, we're working with 100x on bringing about and making sure that some of those necessary things to a successful listing are in place. Now that Ian is partnered with KuCoin, are we more likely to get listed on KuCoin? I don't know, right? KuCoin, again, like all other exchanges, make their own decisions about listing. You know, when we have a decision from KuCoin, I'll let you know. The walkthroughs are constricted. When are you going to open them so we can have some freedom to explore the building apps more? Announcement on this coming soon. Watch this space. Wait for the market to go up. ETH should move above the ICO price and then release the token. Ignore the people who demand the release of the token immediately. I actually think that that's not bad advice. I think that's good advice, right? I mean, does it? Tell me, guys. Am I wrong? Tell me in the comments, right? Does it make sense to unlock our tokens when the price of ETH is below the market price? Right? I mean, sorry, the price of ETH is below the price that you guys purchased the tokens at. Is that a good idea? Or is that someone trying to get in cheap? Good question. Why is the Telegram community falling from 64,000 people to 40,000 people? So, naturally, when we discovered this, we were alarmed, right? In fact, we were so alarmed that we reached out to over 100 people at Telegram via LinkedIn and every possible way we possibly could reach people at Telegram. We haven't heard back from one of them, not one of them, right? What does that tell you? You guys make up your own mind about what that says. But anyway, we looked into this, and what we discovered from looking at the logs is that these are not real people leaving our group, right? These are not people that have voluntarily left our group, right? How do we know that? Because we have logs about who comes in and who goes out. There's a log that you guys don't see, but we as administrators see, about everything that's going on in terms of people leaving, coming, and there's a lot of stuff that we see that you don't see. And so these people are not real people, they're bots, and we're certain about this now. So, and what we also know is that these are not bots that voluntarily left, they're bots that have been likely removed by Telegram. So, they're bots leaving, so makes no difference, right? And so, I even wondered, why would there be so many bots in our group? And I think it's because people are hoping or expecting us to announce some sort of an airdrop or something, and they could amass a large number of tokens by being present in our group. Well, that never happened. And so it doesn't make sense to continue staying in our group. Where do I see Sparkster in 10 years, regardless of the roadmap? Great question. Thank you for asking this. My long-term view on Sparkster, my objective with Sparkster is to build one of the world's largest companies. And specifically how we're going to build one of the world's largest companies is we're going to change your lives. We're going to change people's lives. And how are we going to do this, right? I want you to imagine that, let's go back to the 1980s or the, late 1970s, when people didn't have a computer in their home, right? And so you'd go to someone and you'd say, hey, I think having a computer in your home would be a great idea. And they'd say, what do I need a computer in my home for, right? I think we're in that position today with blockchain. When you say to someone, hey, blockchain's great, they're like, what can you do with blockchain? Right? The same analogy applies today, right? But when when computers solved real problems for real people in the real world, right? When instead of using a typewriter, right, and you're typing on something and then you make a mistake, and you've got to tear the whole page up and start all over again, you can just press the backspace button and delete the mistake you made. When you can solve real problems for real people in the real world, right? You see this emergence of, incredible adoption. Sparkster's story is going to be a story of adoption. But why? Because we make a difference to real people in the real world, right? Because we give them tools to be able to bring their ideas to the world, bring their ideas to reality. And, who else is talking about doing this? I don't know anybody else. So what's my vision for Sparkster in the long run? We're going to be one of the world's largest companies because we're going to change the world. And that's my life mission, guys. So thank you for the question. What date will the platform go live? When can we start building? More information about that soon. You told us that you're negotiating with Binance OKX Huobi. Any news? I never told you any such thing. I told you applications in progress. I'm telling you the same thing. Applications in progress. Why is the contract address still not reflecting individual wallets or tokens corresponding to the team, exchange, charity, etc.? Is that a big deal for you guys? You can see if we move anything. You know, if we put it into obscure wallets, how do you know what's what? This way you can monitor everything, right? So on that note, anything else that anyone wants me to touch on? Does market dominance mean less centralization? Yeah, I think it does, actually. I think if I understand your question, I think we're going to end up with a world that's far less centralized. I think we're going to end up with a world where you're in control of your financial destiny. I think we're going to end up in a world where you don't have to sell your effort. You can sell your ideas. Right? You can bring an idea to life. You can sell it on the Sparkster marketplace. You can build a business out of it, right? I think we're going to end up in a world where you can sell the power that you're generating from solar panels on your roof, and you're no longer forced to sell your effort. So absolutely. What's my view on the crypto market today? Good question. I don't know, you know, what there's a lot of altcoins out there, right? And I can tell you that, you know, in my opinion, many of these altcoins are going to disappear over time because they're not going to be able to cross the chasm in terms of mainstream adoption. In the Tuesday Tech Talk, I talked about a book from a guy called Jeffrey Moore. It's an old book where it's called Crossing the Chasm. And it's focused on this idea of how do we go from, you know, these early adopters and innovators who are excited by what the technology is. And, you know, and that might represent, you know, 3-5% market penetration. How do we get from 3 to 5% market penetration to, say, 20% market penetration, which is what's known as the early majority? Well, these people, according to Jeffrey Moore, these people in the early majority are pragmatic people. They only adopt technology when it solves a meaningful problem. And that's the problem that our industry has. We have an adoption problem, guys, and we need to come together, and work together. That's not just me. That's all of us. That's you included. Right? Yes, you included. You need to work with us to facilitate mainstream adoption of blockchain technology. How do we do that? How do we facilitate mainstream adoption of blockchain technology? Well, the way Steve Jobs did it is he picked up his Mac and he went to people's houses and he, showed them what it does. He told them the narrative of what difference this makes in people's lives. He was that evangelist for the personal computer industry, right? We collectively need to do the same thing, right? What's your vision for the value of blockchain technology? I've already told you mine, right? My vision is that it liberates people. And not only does it liberate people, it puts, specifically in the case of building businesses on top of Sparkster, it enables us to bring about people-powered businesses that will disrupt the world and will put other companies out of business and will lead to less centralization. How about partnering with IoTex? Good people, actually, great people, IoTex. I'd be very interested in partnering with them. What's my main goal after mainnet? My main goal before mainnet, during mainnet, after mainnet is to facilitate mainstream adoption, is to get our platform being used by real people in the real world, right? Is the crypto market sinking or is it a startup? Yeah, it's a great question, actually. I'm going to answer it by talking about, well, let's talk about the dot-com bubble from from the, you know, the 1995s, the 2000s, and so forth, right? You know, it's kind of like what we have going on now, right? There's a lot of people who have speculative perspectives about what this industry is worth and this, that, and the other, right? But at the end of the day, you know, and a lot of those companies disappeared because they couldn't survive the crash. But think about the impact that that bubble had. It brought about, you know, the infrastructure for the internet that we have today. It brought about a lot of things, right? And I think that that's where we are today. I think sometimes you need a bubble, right? Because the bubble brings in the money to enable people like us to do what we need to do to be able to build the infrastructure, right? And then once this technology is solving real problems for real people in the real world, it begins to climb back to where and much further from even where it was, right? So, you know, I invite you to go and look at the chart for Amazon, the crash of you know, 2000s, right? You know, $5 trillion was lost in that crash. $5 trillion. I mean, that's nuts, right? $5 trillion was lost in that crash. But go and look at Amazon's chart, right? You know, that just looks like a blip on the road, right? Look at the chart of the NASDAQ Composite Index, right? It's okay, you know, it took a while to get back, but nonetheless, it's a blip on the road. In terms of, you know, does this industry have a future? I think this industry has a huge future. And I think that we're going to be part of realizing that future. And on that note, guys, I'm going to leave it there. So thank you everyone for your time. It's been a pleasure to be here with you. I hope you've enjoyed today's AMA and I hope it's been valuable. Please share these ideas and these thoughts and encourage people to, you know, understand what it is that they're participating in, you know, and if they're spreading FUD, you know, then I'm not really sure what to do with those guys. But hey, every opportunity is an opportunity. Every exchange is an opportunity for us to share our ideas, and we should. Like I said, as a community, it's our responsibility to create mainstream adoption. This is our industry. This is your industry and my industry. We have to create mainstream adoption. Let's do it together, because together we can be much more effective than depending on me alone or my team alone. In terms of Buy Box, absolutely, I agree with, you know, go and vote on Buy Box tomorrow. It's important to getting Sparkster out there across the entire world. Let's make that happen. Thank you very much, everyone. I'll talk to you next week on Tuesday. We have another announcement coming on Tuesday. Talk to you then.